Head coaches, you do not need player development unless you know what it truly is. Hello. I'm Ed Jones. I'm the founder of Beyond the Field program. This podcast is here to bring exposure to the player development field. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend time with me here. Hey, it's 2023 and it is season 3 of the Player Development Pod. We are kicking it off with our first series, the Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. Before we get started, I have 4 action items for you. Number 1, go visit the website, BTF program. I have some resources there for you. Number 2, I've written an ebook that goes along with this series called Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. It will be coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Number 3, I want to dive deeper into player development with you. So I have information in the show notes about subscription-based player development episodes, podcasts, where I dive deeper into this field. And then number 4, subscribe and give a 5-star rating to this podcast. If you enjoy it, share it with someone. I really appreciate the support that I get from our listeners. All right. I want to give thanks to CJ Parmer, who says this about the Player Development Pod. As a young professional, this pod has helped me connect and listen to professionals in this field. It has helped me grow and shown me skills needed to be successful. CJ, I appreciate you for that. Thank you for those kind words. Thank you for filling out the Player Development Conference mailing list survey. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Now, you heard me talk about the Player Development Conference a little bit in that CJ shout out, but I do have an update for you. The update is that it will be in May. It will be in May. I have the weekend, but I'm reaching out to speakers this week to ensure that they can be there. It's going to be jam-packed with elite speakers, people in the collegiate space, the professional space, coming together and helping us all grow deeper as we continue to grow in player development. So if you're excited about the Player Development Conference, please join the mailing list that's in the show notes. All right, today we begin season 3 of the Player Development Pod. This series is called the Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. Player development's impact can only go as wide or as deep as the support of the head coach. So I wanted to create a series where head coaches can gain a better understanding of player development. Now, if you're not a head coach and listen to this is good for you too, because it's program development overall. But I really wanted to get in with those guys from my experiences with head coaches and from talking to some of my friends who are coaches who will become head coaches. This is a space where a lot of people need to know. So what is player development? What is player development? I define player development as the enhancement of the student athlete and their experience through holistic and intentional development. I'll say that again. I define player development as the enhancement of the student athlete and their experience through holistic and intentional development. There are 4 major words in that definition: enhancement, experience, holistic, and intentional. This episode, we will break down each of these words in the definition to give greater depth to the definition I have for player development. Let's start with enhancement. This is an analogy. If you listen to an episode, I did an episode before in season 1 about what is player development. I'll put that in the show notes. But I always use this analogy when I talk to parents, recruits, even some of the players who ask me about, what is player development? I would always use this. Player development is like a protein drink. It's like a protein drink, right? That they take after a workout. So the workout already happened. They've went in, they've worked out, they've pushed the weights, they've done all that. That workout's there. The protein drink helps enhance what they've already created. So if you know anything about the muscles, they break apart and they come back together and they get bigger. And for all my exercise physiologists and exercise science people, if I'm crushing that, I'm sorry. But in the process of that, the protein drinks helps that enhancement, helps that process, helps the muscles grow back and become stronger. So that's how I see player development. The experience the student athlete is going to have is there, and player development just enhances that, right? I fly Delta a lot, right? And whenever you get your seat, Delta asks you, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to upgrade to Comfort Plus? Do you want to upgrade to first class? Once again, you are on that flight. You're going to get to that destination, but they want to enhance your experience while you're going to your destination. So that's, what the enhancement looks like for, player development. So yeah, you got it. You get it, right? I don't think I need to go any deeper than that. This opportunity to make the given experience, to take the given experience, to the next level, ensuring that the athlete understands everything they have access to and then taking it up a notch, right? So the athlete's surrounded around all these great professionals, be it academic staff, your strength staff, your nutritionists, dietitians, your sports med staff. There's a lot of incredible professionals around them. And I always think when I was in that role, how can we enhance that? How can we make this even better with all this stuff that they're gonna get? Like I hate using the word basic, but the basic experience they have, how can we make it better? So these are some of the questions I ask myself when thinking about the enhancement of the athlete. Number one, how can we add value to this initiative, whatever initiative it is? Number two, how does this achieve the main program goals, the goals that you, head coaches that are listening, have? And number three, can we do this in excellence? Can we do this in excellence? Everyone loves the opportunity to enhance an experience. I love when I go to Marriott and they say, oh, you're a gold member. We gave you an upgrade. Like that happened to me last week. It's awesome. It feels great. You're just like, yeah, I appreciate y'all. And so this is one of the first areas we want to consider when thinking about player development and defining player development. All right. The next is experience. You heard me speak a lot about experience and enhancement. Once again, these are all closely tied together because they're all part of the same definition. So this is the next factor in that definition. This is what the athletes will remember most about their time in your program. They will remember their experience the most. When I talk about football, my teammates, we don't talk about games. I mean, we kind of get into games, but we talk about the experiences we had, the practices, the coaches we had, the games, the trips, the workouts, all like just the experience of being an athlete at the school we were at, What did they experience? How did they feel? What did I experience? What did the athletes experience? How did they feel in that experience? With the influx of migration to the transfer portal, the student athlete experience should be paramount with a lot of calculated thought behind it. Here are some of the questions I ask myself when thinking about the experience of the athlete. What experiences have they had in their life? How can we build upon or restructure those experiences, good or bad? How do we want this experience to impact them, the experience they're having in your program, the experience they're having right now? And will it be a check the box or an out of the box experience for the athletes? We've all been in situations where it's a check the box, right? Will this be an out of the box, something that they was like, wow, yeah, we had to do this, but this was a great experience. There are a lot of different external factors with influence on the everyday experience of your players' lives. I understand that. There's relationships, there's situations, there's different things, but you can make an incredible experience for them in your program and in your sport. You can control the experience they have in your building. All right, we're pausing here for ad time. I'm moving ad to the middle of the podcast. Other podcasts I listen to, they do this. So I was like, let me try it. Here we go. This podcast is brought to you by Beyond the Field Program, LLC. Beyond the Field is now providing player development service. The service includes staff consulting, program evaluation, and program creation. Please head to btfprogram.com and click on our services tab to find out more. We help you help athletes create generational impact. All right, so let's get back into the definition with the last two factors. The next one is holistic. This is the care of the entire person, each unique individual that is in your program. It can be hard to perform at an elite level when other areas in your life aren't getting the attention that your athletic portion of your life are getting. I really love this holistic part of development and my time in the role. I loved it because you get to see the genuine maturation of the individual. So they come in at 16, 17 years old, and in player development football, you honestly meet them 14, 15 because they're coming to camps their freshman year, maybe sophomore year, trying to get a scholarship. So you get to know them pretty much their teenage years, when they get to your campus. And so you get to see them grow up, right? And it's seeing them grow up. They go from young boys to men. But this growth from boys to men, it really can't happen without a plan. Here are questions I ask myself when I'm thinking about the holistic aspect of this definition for our student athletes. Are we taking care of them fully like we told their parents we would? That's important, very, very important. Are we making the right efforts to enhance the whole? Would we want our own children to be under the holistic development vision of the program we are creating? Now, when I first started in player development, I didn't have kids. Now I do. And so would I want my daughters, in another sport? Would I want my son, in this sport, underneath this program, underneath the way we take care of the entire individual? Those are questions you ask. This part of development is important to me because I believe done right, if it's done right, it will have an impact on the performance on the field. It goes back to this old coaching term. Nobody cares to know how much you know until they know how much you care. I think I got that right. But basically, we can help the performance of our athletes by taking care of their entire being, like taking care of them as an entire person. All right, the last part of the definition is intentional. Now, this word grabs all the three parts together and makes sure that there's strategy behind it. I worked at 3 different universities for 5 different head coaches. One was interim. And what worked at one school did not work at another. What worked with one coach did not work with another. So I had to be intentional in developing the athletes, intentional in creating a plan for player development. Intentionality also filtered out a lot of my goals and initiatives if they could not bring forth a productive effect. So I'm a dreamer. I'm like, oh, this looks good. What they're doing at that school looks good. This looks good. That looks good. We could do this. We could do that. We could do this. I got stuff all on my board all the time. Like, this is where it is. This is where it is. Right. But in the role, when I got to intentional, I would look at it. Does this make sense? Can we be intentional with this program? And maybe we didn't have enough resources. Maybe this program didn't matter to, what we were trying to do. And so the intentionality filtered a lot of things out. Head coaches, I know this is probably the word you like the most, this definition. When people come to your office, you oversee so many people, you hear the word intentional, your ears probably perk up. I get it. Coaches, whatever you decide for your program, it must be intentional. Here are questions I ask myself when I'm thinking about the intentional aspect of player development. Number 1, does this align with the culture created by the head coach? Number 2, does this make sense? Number 3, can I communicate the relevance to athletes? Head coaches, can I communicate the relevance to you, your staff, other people who need to know? Programming without intentionality can cause barriers to the impact everyone wants to see. Players are best benefited when development is intentional. Well, there it is. You have it. That's my definition of player development. Hopefully I answered it for you, but I'm going to go over it one more time. What is player development? It's the enhancement of the student athlete and their experience through holistic and intentional development. The enhancement of the student athlete and their experience through holistic and intentional development. If you have any questions about player development or my definition, you want to talk more, please reach out to me at info@btfprogram.com, which is in the show notes. That's all for today. As stated earlier, be on the lookout for my Head Coach's Guide to Player Development ebook, which will be published soon. I look forward to the next podcast, which we will go over part 2 of this series, which is the impact player development can have on your program. Thank you for tuning in and spending your valuable time with me. God bless you. Have a great day. Go out and create generational impact. Don't wait. Create generational impact today.